Good morning.
Good morning.
You there, Julie?
Morena.
Morena. Hey,
Sorry about the Zoom mix-up this morning.
Oh, that's okay. Dana's tied up in an appointment, but she'll come online as soon as she's available.
Thank you.
And my daughter went into hospital early hours this morning, and we're just waiting for the appendix removed. So I may disappear partway through the meeting, waiting on that phone call.
Oh, I hope she gets through it with flying colours.
Yeah, thank you. I'll stay on here as long as I can in between the calls.
I'm just waiting to make sure everyone who is waiting can get in, and then we'll start. Sorry about the few minutes late.
Two,
50 people and counting. We had 80 people register. It's amazing. Okay, that seems to be slowing down now. So perhaps this is a good time to start.
Morning, everybody. It's good to see everyone's faces. A lot of us again, which is awesome. I can't see. All right. Thank you all for being here this morning. Sorry we're a bit late. Okay, before we get into it, I'll kick us off with a karakia, and then we'll go from there. Whakatake te hau ki te uru, whakatake te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, he hia ki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. And in English that means seize the winds from the west, seize the winds from the south, let the breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the ocean, let the red tip dawn come with a sharpened air, a touch of frost and a promise of a glorious day.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, te wehi.
So I'm a bit flustered, Geordie. Can you kick us off? Sorry.
Of course. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. More than 60 people on a Wednesday morning. Just incredible. Thank you. It's nice to see some new faces and some old friends as well. The energy that continues to be put forward in this forum is incredible, and it's all thanks to you wonderful community people. Thank you. Okay, we've got a big agenda today, and I thought we could start off by at the subgroups and the people who are leading those subgroups for us, our focus people, just giving us a quick hello, say who they are, and a quick update on what the subgroup has been up to. I'm going to time them. I'm going to give them 1 minute each to give us a quick update. And what I would invite you all to do is to send a message using the Zoom chat, which is a function you'll find down the bottom of your screen if you haven't used it before, and use it to message those people individually to say, hey, I'm interested in what your group is doing. I haven't been connected with it so far, but I'd like to connect with it. So this is an opportunity for you to hear what's happening, and if there's something you like that you'd like to be involved in, to message those people in the Zoom chat. And they will keep an eye on that chat and connect with you either during the meeting or after the meeting. So if you have your email address as well, then that will help them be connected with you. Okay, so I will flick through the subgroups that we've got. Charmaine, can I check that you're here? I haven't seen you.
Yes.
Ah, brilliant. Thank you,
I'm
Charmaine.
here.
She's going to be taking notes for us today, so I don't need to worry about it. Lovely. Okay, so shall we start with the cluster of subgroups we call Te Manawa Te Taio, which think about the well-being of the natural world, and we'll kick off with the ecosystems and biodiversity subgroup. Do we have a focus person here from that group today?
Yes, we do. It's me, Chris Wheatley. Yeah. So shall I? When does my 1 minute start?
It's already
Is there a bell?
started. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. Right. So we've had the ecosystems and biodiversity. We've had a couple of Zoom meetings since the last Hui. We've been drafting this sort of action planning strategy document, and the current draft is uploaded onto the forum, whole forum document. What we're trying to do is, because we've got many different community groups represented within this subgroup who are already active with regards to sort of biodiversity. So what we're trying to do is to add value to their actions, and rather than trying to duplicate what they're already doing. And so there's sort of three areas probably where we can focus. One is around mapping. Where is the biodiversity most threatened or most vulnerable to climate change impacts? And that's something where the TDC has done a sort of mapping exercise around the priority ecosystems, and we're looking at how we can overlay climate change onto that. The second one is looking at what practical or regulatory actions can be taken, sort of based on some of those priorities, and also maybe as a watchdog role about what's going on in the region, and how climate change biodiversity might be relevant to those processes or actions or projects or whatever. The other thing is we've had quite a lot of interaction with the Te Ao Maori subgroup and kaitiakitanga, and we're sort of working on a process to improve our strategy document, make it more holistic, more compatible with that. And we've had some very active engagement with them over the last week or so. So
Thank you very much, Chris. Did you hear the alarm go off when it went off?
No. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So only I hear it, in which case I'm going to have to be the alarm. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's crack on to the soil, water and air subgroup, which is all combined under James. Are you here today, James?
I'm sitting beside you, according to my screen.
Okay, you started.
Oh, yes. The air, water, and soil are three, very important elements under the main group, Te Mana Oti Taio. We haven't had hardly any interest in these groups, apart from just recently when issues have come up about the long-term plan in Motueka and addressing the poor air quality there. So we've had one group about that topic so far. These are terrifically interesting groups, so I'm hoping all of you jump on board. We can ask questions like who owns the air, who owns the soil, who owns the water, all sorts of amazing, interesting, broad conversations to have. So, bit of an ad for me. We're meeting with the clustering with the ecosystems and biodiversity and Te Ao Māori group. They're all within the cluster. We can have broad conversations with people and build up these groups. So, I think they're the best groups by far. Don't know why there hasn't been a lot of interest in them. Come and join us. Yes.
Perfect timing, James. Amazing. All right. Next up then, Te Ao Māori, please.
Love the energy, James. Kia ora, everybody. I'm also the focus person of the Te Ao Māori kaitiakitanga subgroup. Our main focus at the moment is bringing mātauranga Māori into our forum. And that is just the passing down of our knowledge as tangata whenua and mana whenua, being the people of this rohi or this area. At the moment, the capacity of the members of our group is very low due to other commitments. So I'm kind of sailing this waka by myself throughout the forum, which is all good. Happy to be that person. And it's just about trying to connect with everybody and showing the relevance and the importance of Te Ao Māori throughout all this kaupapa. So, kia ora.
Kia ora, Wehi. You had 10 seconds to go. Very good. Decision making for climate action. Is Aaron here?
Shall I here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm starting my minutes timing. Okay, so 3 focuses at the moment. Firstly, how do we make decisions and achieve consensus within the forum? So we've got some notes in the strategic document about that. Second is, how do we maximize engagement with the community and get community input so that our decisions do reflect as many people as possible, and thereby we have a greater mandate to ask for change or make recommendations and so on. And that might involve certain people within the forum going out into the community and engaging with certain groups, presenting our ideas, asking for feedback, then asking them to support those relevant policies and areas. The third area is alternative political structures. So for example, do local councils or even the central government have the right structures to make the changes that we are seeking, or would a People's Assembly, for example, do that better? We'll have another meeting early next week. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. With plenty of time to spare. Resilient communities.
Julia, can I just, Julie, a few people are waiting to get in, I think. Can you just admit them?
Oh, goodness me. Thank you very much, Anna. There we go. In they come. All right. I will keep a better eye on that. Resilient communities. Toby.
Hi, yeah, we had a meeting last night and we're meeting fortnightly at the moment. You can find our meeting link in Google Calendar. Last night, our discussion moved to food resilience, really, and I think there's a strong desire in that group to focus on food resilience. So grow, cook, preserve, and that sort of stuff. So we've got people in the group who have resources and experience doing that. So if you'd like to come along, we also had a bit of a chat about general resilience, and so we've got about 8 in the group. It'd be great to have a few more along. So by all means, come along.
Oh, I'm muted. Thanks, Toby. Social justice, Jace.
So our group has made, I think, pretty good progress. We've got just sort of distilled the social justice priorities down to about 6 ethical guidelines that will help us to make the major transitions we need to make as a society if we're going to actually address the ongoing economic and social concerns that that are going to have to be adjusted. So I think we've made some pretty good progress. We have a great unanimity. We're working on the last point. I think Peter Wallace is going to help us have a bit of a Hui on one of the last points, and there'll be a notice up for that. But I think we've distilled it down. I believe we're very close to being able to submit.
Thank you, Jace. We're still on our minutes. Looks like I picked some excellent people. You picked some excellent people to do this work. Society and culture, JP.
Hello. Sorry, I'm late. Yeah, we've sort of met sporadically, and not recently either. But we did get a submission in. Primarily Bob and I got a submission in for the annual plan, which is good, and I think that's allowed us to formulate or find our feet a little bit and see what society and culture is about. I guess our submission was quite critical of council, and we do need to make some changes. Going forward, we are going to speak to the submission next week, so we need to prepare for that, and so we'll have a meeting before then. And one of the things I do want to discuss as part of the group is a way moving forward from being critical to actually having some answers. And one of that, I've been thinking about a campaign around paying more, buying less, basically. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, we could do with some more people and some more people who actually want to get their feet dirty.
Kia ora, thanks, JP. Peace, reconciliation and conflict. Leslie here this morning.
Kia ora, everybody. The Peace, Conflict and Reconciliation is currently working on the internal culture of the forum. So we're meeting as a small group to think about ways to incorporate, for example, more check-ins at the beginning of the meetings, conflict resolution processes, and also looking at the way systems of oppression are making their ways through us in the forum and how we dismantle these behaviors and really have the space to look at how to have a forum that's truly inclusive and transformative, because we have these spaces to reflect on these invisible cultural pillars that tend to orient our actions, thinking, behaviors. We've been meeting almost weekly, and we're experimenting with activities and exercises that we could put in our meetings so that we increase the level of connection between members, besides just doing planning and going through our agenda. So that's us, I think.
Kia ora, thank you. Local economy and business. I'm not sure Bruce is here. Are you, Bruce?
You're muted, Bruce.
On mute.
He is here. Ah.
Bruce, you're on mute.
Muted.
I'm terribly sorry. I must have double-clicked on that. Thanks, Julie. Kia ora, everyone. Despite the challenges for businesses, just now there's a lot happening locally. This applies particularly to businesses for climate action. This is not strictly a subgroup of the Climate Forum, but a bottom-up group that developed independently and simultaneously and fits perfectly into the forum. We stay closely connected, support each other, and we're swimming in the same direction. Their focus is on having a large number of local businesses measuring and reducing emissions. They've set a bold target for this year and have made a great start on this. They had their launch last week, and that was delayed by the lockdown. And 5 leading local businesses were speaking at that regarding their strategy and goals. My favourite message from this meeting was, we wish everyone knew how simple it is to measure their emissions. And that's where we start, and that's how we learn what works. There's more details on that on the strategy pages. So focus is on supporting each other, not duplicating. And please get in touch with me or with that group if you are interested in learning more. Cool.
Kia ora, thanks Bruce. Urban development, Scott.
I don't think Scott's here. If there's anyone else from urban development who can speak on what you guys up to.
Michael, are you in a position to comment? I haven't been to all the meetings, but otherwise I'll have a go.
If you could, Lindsay, I've only been to a couple as well, so.
Thanks. So I can't give you a full update. Sorry, Julie, but basically we're meeting fortnightly. The numbers range between about 6 and 15 or 16. The last meeting, which was just on Monday, Tiwehi kindly joined us and gave us a good run through, particularly on the integration of Te Ao Māori into the areas of building and infrastructure that we're working on. And since then, there's been quite an unfolding of other contacts and leads that we can follow to engage further with that. We also, for example, the Nelson annual plan has just gone in, and so there are and there's the TDC annual plan, long-term plan currently involved in consultation. So there is quite a lot happening in that space. I'm sorry, I can't give you more on that, but I think that gives you a little bit of a picture for the moment.
That's great, thanks Lindsay. Energy, is James here?
No, James made an apology.
Thank you. Would someone else from Energy like to let us know what's happening in that group?
I wonder about Bruce. Would he talk about that group? Otherwise, I could, but I didn't know till today that James wasn't coming. So unless Bruce wants to. No, okay. It's probably a couple of weeks since we've had a meeting, and there's probably about 5 or 6 of us. We've talked quite a bit about Carolyn Hughes has had quite a bit of involvement with changing the energy supplies of schools, quite away from fossil fuels. Now, the other thing is, I think it's Glenn Lightfoot who has had involvement with biofuels in North Island, particularly with orchard waste. And I don't know whether anybody noticed that when we went to level 3, suddenly we were seeing smoke from presumably the orchard waste in the Mott area. Not a criticism of them, but if there's a way of helping them convert their orchard waste to biofuels, that'd be great. That's about all I can say at the moment.
Well, thanks, Jill. I really appreciate you jumping in there. Land use, is Jessica here?
Yes, kia ora everybody. So we are dealing with the issue of whenua or land, which is close to all of our hearts. And this covers quite a wide variety of issues such as native forests, wetlands, urban sprawl, forestry, soil and water management, and farming. And we're trying to think about as a group the way that land use interconnects with things like ecosystem services and functions that land provides. It obviously provides a great source of livelihoods for us here in the Nelson Tasman district. It provides our food and fibre and energy. And it also provides a great source of connection and enjoyment for us here in this region with such a beautiful land that we have. So some actions that we're doing is trying to connect with other subgroups a bit more because land use does connect with so many other groups like urban development and ecosystems, biodiversity, and the food fibre systems and Te Ao Māori. What we're trying to do is upskill ourselves on what's happening currently, either with existing organisations such as farming organisations or land care that are working in this area already, trying to understand what the drivers are of our current emissions profile and land use. And then what we'll do in the future is look to work with others that have identified maybe some best practice pilots or examples that we could look to support that provides a vision for what the future of land use could look like, and whether that's around carbon sequestration, mitigation, adaptation, diversification. So that's what we're up to. We are having a next meeting is on next Monday evening at 7 p.m, May the 18th, and that's specifically going to be talking about farming and land use, and agriculture more broadly. So we'd welcome anybody along to that. It's in the Google Calendar. Thanks.
Kia ora. I understand Becky's not here. Is there someone from the Food, Forestry and Natural Fibre Systems group who would like to just update us quickly?
I could probably do that, Julie, if you want me to.
Thanks, Kate. Yes, please.
Kate Fulton, City Councillor. Look, really great to see you all and hear what's happening in all the other groups. I've attended a couple of the food fibre. I'm not entirely sure what the group's called, sorry, Julie. But the food and fibre group with Becky, she's a great facilitator, and people worked really hard on putting through a submission to the Nelson Annual Plan on good food cities, which is great. I think some other groups might have submitted to the annual plan and are putting in submissions to the long-term plan as well. So yeah, it seems like a great group and lots happening. I think just picking up, it sounds like there's some overlap with other groups. I'm more than happy to come in and support other groups as they would like me to as well.
Kia ora, thanks, Kate. Karen, Resources and Waste Group.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. Yeah, we've been having monthly meetings. The strategy document's been updated with our strategic objectives. We've got a really sort of engaged group, and it seems to be growing. We've got a lot of overlap with other groups, the food and natural fibres, the urban development, Toby and JP with the descriptions you've just given of your groups. I think there's overlap there on waste and projects. So trying to keep an eye on what's happening with all the other groups is quite a challenge. We did put a submission into the annual plan, and we're planning a live stream of the Story of Plastic movie in early June that will be advertised to the forum and beyond, and that will also have a discussion panel afterwards to engage in some discussion about the issues that come up with experts in that field. So,
Thanks, Karen. That's perfect. Thank you. Peter Lorenshaw is not here, but he's just taken over the running of the transport group. Is someone from the transport group here who would like to speak to what they have been talking about?
Kia ora, Julie.
Hi, Tim.
Tim here. Yeah, hi everyone. Yes, there has been a bit of a leadership vacuum in the transport group, and but we have had several meetings. We're delighted that Peter's taken that role on board. Our key focus has been the submissions process. So yes, the council should be receiving plenty of ideas and thoughts about what we think should be happening around the district. But yeah, Peter in particular has very, very detailed background and knowledge in this area. So looking forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Kia ora, thanks, Tim. Admin and finance. Jenny, are you speaking to that today, or Michael?
Are you willing to give it a go, Jenny?
Yep. Yes, we've only met a couple of times, but I'm putting in a plea. We desperately need more people. The Climate Forum itself doesn't have a bank account or hold funds, and we're currently using an arrangement with Zero Carbon Nelson Tasman, which is a group I'm in, and also the Nelson Environment Centre, which is incorporated. And, so far okay, but the work stream that we're heading for is going to need more funds, and we also need organisational experience, because as you know, running those face-to-face meetings and outreach things requires quite a bit of background work to make them run smoothly and not waste everyone's time. And we would really like somebody who's got experience with applying to the Rata Foundation for funding, because that's about the only one that we can use for salaries or the sort of things that the forum's going to need, and if we want to do a regional climate strategy. So it would suit somebody who's got some knowledge of the region, enthusiasm for the Climate Forum, and some expertise in funding applications. You can belong to other subgroups as well. In fact, I'm wanting to join some of the other subgroups as well too, but at the moment we need to make sure we've got enough funding to run this show. And so please, somebody come and help.
Kia ora, thanks, Jenny. Greg, communication.
First point, could subgroup members, I love getting the emails because a lot of you have included me on your distribution list, but you're buried deep down into it. Oh, we've got a meeting next Wednesday. Now, I don't have enough time to jump on these meetings to read all these emails, so I tend to leave it till a later stage, which does cause problems if I read it and the meeting was in the past. So if you're going to organise a meeting, a Zoom meeting, can you just do it in a short, sharp, little specific email to me, and then I can action it specifically. Second point, I have been bearing myself into trying to get a trial NING to support the operations of the forum, and the trial has turned out to be very helpful because I'm tending to make a lot of mistakes, and that's the best way to learn, I find, well, at least for me. Third point, and this is a project the communications group has been involved with that I don't think is getting much traction, and that's the development of the webinar to explain to people outside the forum what we do and what we aspire to. I'm still doing research into the background to all that, but I haven't noticed any traction from anybody else in that task. So would like to hear from anybody who's trying to make progress on that matter. And that's the end of my presentation.
Kia ora, thanks, Gregor. Yako, last one, science, technology and research. And after that, you could just keep going straight into a presentation from your subgroup. Thank you.
Julie, you got my email last night that we were withdrawing the presentation, is that correct?
And I take it you didn't see my emails this morning with Jack to pop you guys back in again. Jack says he's keen to do it, and I popped you guys in the front. So if that works for you, then we're all set to go.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll leave that section to Jack in that case. We're ticking along all right here. I'm not really sure what to add. In fact, I'd invite any. I said we've got David here. We've got Anne as well. If any of you would like to add comment, please do. I think, like many of the other groups, we're at a stage of looking to bring on further members. The workload is only increasing, but I think really positive so far. Yeah, that's all from me. So I'm a bit buried in work this morning.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, so on that note then, you can see that there's a huge amount going on in the groups in the forum already. We've only been going less than 3 months, and it's incredible. And the way to get in touch with any of these groups either is to jump onto the chat now and email the people who have been speaking to you. Or their email addresses are in most of the emails that I send you. Or you can connect to the forum's calendar, which has all of the meetings that any of the subgroups schedule, and the link to those meetings calendar. And there's a link to the calendar. There will be a link to the calendar in the next email that I send you if you haven't seen that already, as there has been before. So we're going to crack on to the Science, Technology and Researchers presentation to you this morning. I won't say anything more about it except that they are looking to bring to you things to consider as we go through this journey together. So over to Jack, who I believe is going to share his screen with you. And if you would like any questions to be answered, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll have a look at them in 10 minutes after their presentation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Greeting Earthmates. I'm going to now do a share screen, and it's the first time I'm doing it, so I hope it works. Okay, can everyone see that? Great.
Just to Jack, you might want, yeah, you'll be putting this full screen, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just going to, there we go. Now, I'm making this presentation on behalf of the Science, Technology and Research subgroup. We chose the topic of energy descent for a couple of reasons. One, it's because energy is so critical to absolutely everything we do. And we felt that it was an issue that was going to have an impact on each of the subgroup activities and plans. And so we're hoping that you'll deal with and consider the issue of energy descent as you make your plans within your subgroup. The second reason we chose it was because we felt it was an issue that is very difficult because of some of the implications of energy descent. And so it's difficult to deal with, and we tend to ignore it. We tend not to discuss it. So we wanted to bring it to everyone's attention and hope they give it some consideration. The first point is that we rely enormously still on fossil fuels. And of course, we've got to get rid of them, but we have to understand how historically they really have been responsible for building our modern industrial civilization. And it's not only because of the volume of fossil fuels that we've used, but the surplus energy they provide. That is, they allow much more energy to be available for use than is required to extract them. And this slide here shows, an oil well on the left-hand side. The conventional wells produced an energy return on energy invested in the early part of the last century of something like 100 to 1. It's just kind of a magical amount of energy available for the energy invested. But what really counts is what happens at the right-hand side here. That is the energy surplus, so the surplus after all the energy that is required for extraction and refining and transporting. What do we have left is what we use in our economy and what we built our society with. And so remember, we've gone from, in the early part of the last century, a net energy return of about 100 to 1, which is really quite incredible. If we look at what's happening now, we see that for oil and gas, similar for coal, but we're going to concentrate on oil and gas for simplicity here, it's declined substantially. In 2000, it was less than 30 to 1, and now it's less than 20 to 1. And if you take this black line and extend it out over time, you can see that well within the time that the Climate Forum is planning for, we're going to have a very low net energy return or surplus energy available. So this means we're going to have to start making choices about priorities. So the question becomes, what's happening as we make a transition from fossil fuels to renewables? Well, let's consider this graph here. The blue area shows the energy available for society, or the net energy at different levels at the bottom of energy return on energy invested. So the energy invested is the red up above, and we can see that at very high levels of energy invested, we get a substantial return, very, very high percentage of return. But as we move to lower and lower EROIs, or net energy return, even though we invest lots of energy here, the red part of the graph, we get less and less available surplus to do other things. So the question becomes, if we superimpose on this graph the different technologies that we have available to us, what's the impact? And again, historically, if we look at the left-hand side here, early part of last century, very, very high net energy. And as we move to things like deep sea and Arctic and so on, it started, the EROI declined a little bit, or quite a bit, but the percent of energy surplus only declined a little. But as we move further down along the energy return on energy invested curve, we begin to reach a point where the decline in energy available to do work, or surplus energy, actually can decline quite rapidly. And so the point here, you can't see it very well, but it's labeled, this is where tar sands are. It's actually less than 5 to 1. So there's a huge, vast field of tar sands in northern Canada, but it's very, very low net energy return. And here as well, if we look at wind and photovoltaic PV panels, we see that we're coming to the lower energy return on an invested part of the scale, and the impact on the surplus energy available is even greater. So the question becomes now, well, let's look at it another way. And this is just a bar graph showing similar information. If we look at domestic US oil 1930, we say it was still very high, near 100 to 1. If we look at domestic US oil in 1970, it's down here. And if we look at it in 2000, it's down here. And this is because they've moved to shale oil and tar sands and much more difficult to extract kinds of oil. So even though the amount may be similar, the surplus available to do other things is much lower. And if we look at wind, now this is wind here, sorry, and PV panels, we see they're quite low compared to fossil fuels. Now these data for wind and solar are for individual windmills or individual solar panel sets. But we all know that the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, even in sunny Nelson. So there's the issues of intermittency and storage. And we are dealing with those. There's technical solutions to them, but those technologies also require energy to operate. So when we look at the total 100 renewable system, we have to ask ourselves the question, well, what's the net energy going to be for that? Now, we don't know that but there has been a recent simulation. And what the team found was that if you take into account the intermittency and the storage issues, the net energy comes out at less than 3 to 1. So again, historically, we're moving from net energy of 100 to 1 down to a potential in a decade or two, perhaps, of less than 3 to 1. Now, again, that was a simulation, and it had certain assumptions and certain data sets it was using. Those will be improved over time, and we'll get better estimates. But the point is there's some uncertainty about what kind of net energy we will have, although the picture is fairly clear that it's going to be considerably less than we have now. So the question arises, well, how much do we actually need? Well, various scholars have looked at this issue, and what they generally come up with is a EROI, or energy return on investment, in this area here of about 5 to 1 or 7 to 1, which again is a little bit higher than the projected net energy for a 100% renewable system. So we may have some challenges here, and it's important that we take these into consideration as we proceed with our planning. Now, back in 2013, the UK government commissioned a study of global energy sources in EROI. And the main conclusion of the study is that declining energy availability need not be an undesirable future. It's obviously going to depend on how we plan for it and prepare for it. Now, our experience with the changes from the pandemic have given us some suggestions and indications of some things. We've been reintroduced to the concept of essential services for basic human needs. And indeed, we may be required to give this considerably more consideration as we proceed. If we have less surplus energy available, we're going to have to prioritize how we use that energy. And that's something that we haven't generally done because energy has been so readily available and so cheap, and we've all gotten used to that and assume it's simply going to continue. So the main message here is energy descent is probably a physical phenomenon. It is a physical phenomenon, but it may not be reversible. And we're encouraging all the subgroups to consider energy descent in preparing their plans for those groups. So we believe that it's very possible to live well with less energy, but it's going to require some changes. This slideshow will be available with the references, as well as a narrative. I'm not exactly sure where it will be posted, but we'll figure out and let everyone know. And we do, our group is also planning to provide some additional materials and welcome any questions from other subgroups in terms of how this phenomenon of energy descent may impact their work. Just in some way, we'd be delighted to do so. Thank you.
Kia ora, Jack. Thank you so much for delivering that presentation. I think we can all see that there's some implications for wide-ranging implications for this region. Now, I don't see any other questions in the chat, but my question really is, what are the implications you see for this region? As energy return declines and the available energy declines, some people might say New Zealand's pretty good with all its hydropower, electricity shouldn't be an issue, but energy is more than that. It's more than electricity, right? So could you just outline a few things that you think would be really quite impacted in this region?
Well, again, I think the first point is that there's considerable uncertainty as to what kinds of surplus energy we're going to have available. As I understand it, the oil industry is in turmoil at the moment because they have an oversupply because of the oil availability when the demand crashed with the pandemic, the global pandemic. And this is going to have huge implications on how the oil industry operates over the next little while in terms of being able to gear up again. They're going to have to shut down wells, and apparently that can damage wells and make them more expensive to reopen and make it difficult to get the same amount of oil out, for example. So we may see some of the impacts of this phenomenon quite early. Right now, oil's cheap, but petrol's cheap, but it could go up considerably within months. So, as I said, I think we're going to have to think about the activities that we prioritize. Energy and economic activity have as about a near perfect correlation as you can imagine. The increase in energy surplus and the increase in economic activity. Very, very direct relationship. So if we're thinking of getting our economy, recovered, I think that's going to be very difficult, especially if we ignore the issue of energy descent. So we have to start thinking about what essential services, in my view, what essential services are required. Ensure we have energy available for those, and then what's discretionary, and how might we deal with those issues. So it's not just a matter of energy efficiency, but I think we're going to have to reprioritize what we do as a society, and that's going to happen locally. I mean, this is a global issue like climate change, but the implications like climate issues are going to be, the energy issues are going to be very local as well.
Kia ora. So a couple of questions have popped up in the chat. We had one asking about how that will impact our reliance on imports and exports. And also the second question that strikes me is one about what that means, whether it speaks to more self-sustaining energy systems here in Nelson, Tasman. And if so, what systems would you think we should be developing?
Yeah, I think they're both great questions. On the the import issue, I mean, there's the energy import, but there's importing everything else as well. And because we're a tiny little market at the bottom of the Pacific, we're at the end of everybody's supply chain. So we need to think hard about what is essential and consider manufacturing it, making it here. The second question about localizing energy resources. Absolutely. Currently, our main energy from the south, our power from the south, power cables go across the Alpine Fault. If that fault goes, we may be without power for months. And if you think of the implications of that, simply for communicating in a time of crisis, that's pretty serious. So, one suggestion would be a community-owned and operated renewable energy system for the top of the South.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. That's awesome. There are plenty of other questions coming in, but our time has run out. So I'd like to invite your subgroup to check out those questions and perhaps make the answers to those available in the resources that you create. Thanks. Okay, so let's crack on then to another subgroup, the Te Ao Māori, who are going to introduce to us the concept of kaitiakitanga. And in particular, we're going to be thinking after that about how that is reflected in the clusters of subgroups that we've created. We're going to be dividing up after this presentation into clusters, so quite big groups of people who would like to think today about one of the clusters. And I would like you all, before Tuehi and his group make their presentation, to go to the chat and to tell me which of the clusters you would like to be in for that discussion. So your choices are Te Mana o Te Taio, the well-being of the natural world. That's one choice. Another choice is the well-being of the people. Another is the resilience of our systems. And the last is the functioning of our forum. So please pop into the chat down the bottom of your screen and type in which one of those you would like to be in. And I'll make sure that you go to the right discussion group when it's time. But for now, over to Tuehi. Thank you very much, everybody, for doing that.
Kia ora, everybody. Thank you, Jack, for that. That was an awesome presentation and a hard act to follow, considering I don't have one. I'm the only one here in our subgroup, and we haven't actually prepared anything, which is a bummer. But so I've been thinking about what it is I want to do in this space. So yeah, I want to start by just saying that for me, coming into this forum and coming into the environmental movement, I didn't know about my own indigeneity before that. So what I'm bringing is something that's come after my involvement in the environmental movement. But by doing so, also I've come to realise the huge benefit and necessity that Te Ao Māori holds within our mahi that we're doing. Firstly, I want to talk to you guys about Te Ao Māori, what it is. I'm very aware of the audience I'm speaking to and the level of knowledge around me. So I want to be able to speak to that to you guys and just try and bring a bit of understanding around it, and then follow on with a bit of kaitiakitanga. For me, I'm at the beginning of this, so I'm no expert on any of it. Our experts aren't here today, which is a bummer. But kei te pai, it's just about starting that conversation and building those bridges, I guess. So yeah.
Shappy is in the room. If you would like to draw on his knowledge.
He's left.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, exactly. I asked him at the start, but he had to go, so it's all good. But so I'm going a little bit off script, but that's all good. The conversation is what matters. So yeah, so as the only member in this group that is tangata whenua, I see huge
Oh, we may have lost him. Oh no, that's bad timing, isn't it? Peter, I wonder if I could put you on the spot to begin this conversation, as you've had much experience with kaitiakitanga as a concept. Would you mind jumping in? Thanks.
So I'll just speak out of the work that we've done in the Tahitanga Motataiao project, which involved 5 iwi, 6 councils and Department of Conservation, and worked through various concepts like manakitanga, rangatiratanga and kaitiakitanga. And so tanga is just a way of doing things. So if we think about that as a thing, and all of these concepts are embedded, as Tuihi was about to say, in a worldview. And so they have a depth of meaning within a culture, and at the same time they become embedded in our law and our culture. So a lot of people talk about kaitiakitanga. It's in acts of parliament, like the Resource Management Act, as one of the things that we do. And different iwi, it's not a pan-Māori concept. Different iwi have different ideas about this. So a kaitiaki may be a person, a group of people, an atua, a god or a spirit, but the core idea is about using or engaging with our environment that's inherently regenerative as we use that environment for our own benefit. So the idea is that we're restoring and regenerating as we use. So some people might think of kaitiakitanga as being things like making national parks or reserves and those sorts of things, but in fact, it's integrative between use and protection, and that the two things need to happen simultaneously. And kaitiakitanga in the Māori worldview operates where there's not the separation that our culture's created between its environment and the people. So, and that's a point that Shappy would make very strongly, is that if we proceed from the idea that we place the world is there for us to use, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And in fact, we are creatures embedded in a system, and within a Māori worldview context, it's not just a system of people and natural ecosystems and the like, but also of the atua, the spiritual qualities as well. And our role in that is as a junior partner. That is in the cosmology and creation. We got created after the plants and animals by the same creator, Tani Mahuta, who made the Earth Woman and made all of us from all of that. But we're junior partners because the plants and animals and natural things were there first. At the same time, we have a unique capacity to affect that, and so we have responsibilities, and that's how it plays out. So working in Kaikoura, the community, the Māori community there decided everybody should be kaitiaki of the marine environment. In another context, in the Waikato, I was told very firmly that only traditional actors could be kaitiaki. So, but it doesn't make any difference. The kaitiakitanga is the way of acting in harmony and using our environment in a way which is inherently regenerative. So I guess that would be my brief summary. I'll pause there.
Kia ora, Peter. Sorry, guys, my internet cut out on me. I don't know where I got to. But thank you, Peter, for taking over. Again, I've missed most of that, so I don't know what's been said. But yeah, what I caught at the end is that kaitiakitanga is it also comes to the understanding that we are part of the natural world, not separate, and that in everything we should do, for me and I think a lot of Māori, that the natural world or our environment should come first in all our decisions. That the health of our whenua is directly related to the health of us, and as kaitiakitanga or kaitiaki, any decision we made, our natural world should be put first. So in terms of decisions being made in our forum, that should always be the mindset. And to me, it should be the first mindset, is that our environment is what brings us health, and so inherently we should then put it first. Yeah. So the other one I was thinking of in terms of te ao Māori concepts that we can bring into the forum is also ones like kotahitanga, which is unity. And personally, I think that the health of the people's cluster, that should be the focus of that one, because kotahitanga, to achieve kotahitanga within our communities means that everyone is equal in standing, I guess, which works towards the just transition, which is huge, and understanding that at the moment we do not have unity in our communities and societies. So that in itself is another huge part or huge concept to consider when moving forward in these discussions, I guess. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm not really in it today. I'm in quite a bad place, but I might just leave it there before I go on a ramble, and just open it up for questions and see how we go.
So if you want to put your hand up for questions rather than putting them in the chat, which is a bit busy at the moment, thanks to everyone who's put their preferred cluster in, keep them coming. Then yeah, we're here. We'll keep an eye out for your hands. I see.
Fiona?
I just really want to endorse that worldview. As an ecologist, it's just been so blatantly obvious to me over recent years that one of the key issues we face in our world is that we've forgotten that we are biological organisms embedded in a planet that we are wholly dependent upon, and we believe that technology can save us and our own ingenuity can save us. And we have to recognise that we are of the earth And so I'm really encouraged by what you're bringing to the group, Te Wehi, and really challenging us to be more cognizant of where we really do sit within this life that we have.
Sure, Fiona.
I saw Jill's hand before.
It was only just to thank you guys, because I couldn't put it on the comments because the comments were too busy, and I think the reason we haven't responded very rapidly to where he is because we're also busy with comments. Yeah, what he says is, and thank you, Peter, for stepping in as well, is so fundamental.
Kia ora, Jill.
Can I say something, Julie? Yeah, thanks to Wehi. The indigenous perspective, you know, it's interesting to me. It strikes me that it's reflected in ecological economics, where the principle of needing to change our culture from a mining-based culture, where we extract things from the earth, largely non-renewables, but also we over-extract renewables, and moving from a mining culture to a harvest culture, so that we manage to get as much food, fuel, and fiber from a harvest rather than from mining. Now that's a huge mind shift for a culture, but I think the more we can think about that and try to move in that direction, the more sustainable we'll be.
I guess for me, in heading down this path of trying to adopt a new worldview, and for a lot of people in this group particularly, it's incredibly foreign. You know, it was for me, even growing up in Rotorua, where it was majority Māori, but still living within the constructs of a colonial system. For me, as we move down it, the most important thing is that people raise the concerns they have with it, because that's where we're able to build off, rather than the agreements. So what I really want to hear from people is if there are concerns or uncertainties or confusion anywhere, so that we can actually build from that. So if there's any of that, raise your hand, speak up.
I think one of the things that's difficult for us as a subgroup and as a forum is that we can, and I think what you've said to here is really important, that it has to, rather than being what I've seen it often is Te Ao Māori, or just kind of being an add-on, or, you know, kind of something that's thought about after the work has already been done. Okay, how do we take this into consideration, even though this is where we're going? And so I think it's really good that we have this discussion now, that it's at the starting point from where we start. It's the guidelines that we start from. But one of the struggles that we're going to come up against is that it's not the worldview that we're operating within. We're still, you know, the work that we're going to have to do is working with existing systems and existing worldviews that are in conflict with that. And so we're going to have to try and balance that tension. How are we trying to improve on what's already there versus completely flipping the worldview and the way that things are operating out there? It's just one of the things that, yeah, I've been thinking about.
Kia ora, Jess. And I agree that we have to find that middle ground where we both work together. I fully acknowledge that both sides have things to offer, but there has to be a lot of work done in finding the Te Ao Māoris, what we have to bring, because, you know, for a lot of us, it's never been part of our thinking. So it's just about, what are you up to, mate? It's about, yeah, it's just about sharing that knowledge and finding value in what Te Ao Māori has to bring to this space. There has to be acknowledgement that since colonisation, Māori have been fighting not only for their own rights, but for the rights of Papatūānuku and all the environmental atua and whatever, you know, like we've been fighting this battle since for hundreds of years, and it's only in the last few decades that everyone else has jumped on that waka without acknowledging the indigeneity within that waka. So there has to be that aspect of it as well, I guess.
So if I can just have one more say to Wehi. The transition point for me was when I went from thinking of this as a social justice question, which I did for decades, to recognise, and Shappy's pretty hot on this as well, that this we have to think of this worldview as being a gift that we need. And Shappy's explanation is that we've been through these rounds of industrialization, and in fact the worldview that we have has led to the situation that we find ourselves in. It's inherently unsustainable. And that people who are less removed from that, because they've been marginalized through colonization, have in fact not lost those worldviews which were similar to ones that we might have had some centuries ago and are necessary to our future survival. So I think it's really useful probably to hear if we work through a bunch of things, not just kaitiakitanga, but, you know, kotahitanga, manakitanga, supporting each other, you know, aroha, those concepts as a way of finding not so much a balance as a future worldview that will work for our future survival. And so it's not this is right and that is wrong. It's just we know that the way that we're working now doesn't work. So as a climate forum, we're trying to help to guide our community to that. And we have this gift that, unlike many people, we have Indigenous people still present who haven't forgotten the way that they managed to live with this environment before. And so if we can think of it as a gift rather than as a duty, it becomes far less burdensome. It's just it's a really wonderful, interesting thing to become curious about. So I guess that's my offering.
Kia ora, Peter, and I totally talk about that in terms of kaitiakitanga not being the only aspect that we can bring into this. You know, there's heaps, and something that was passed on to me, a tool, and understanding why we need to start looking at it from a different scope is the whakapapa or lineage of the Western worldview. And I've shared this with a couple of people, but not everybody. And I just think that when you look at it from this perspective, you can really see why it is we need to start thinking differently. So I'll read out the whakapapa of the Western worldview to you guys, and I'll let you guys sit with that. It starts with feudalism, monarchianism, imperialism, colonialism, industrialism, capitalism, neoliberal capitalism, neo-corporate capitalism, neo-fascist capitalism. And to me, that is the founding of, that to me is the core issue of why we are where we are, and why it is we need to start looking outside that spectrum. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand that worldview still has things to offer, and it cannot be forgotten. But we need to look at what's been put into creating that. So, yeah, I'll let you guys sit with that. But
Kia ora. Thank you, Wehi. So we've been looking at this concept of kaitiakitanga as a way of safeguarding our natural world and our communities as within that, and our systems as within those communities and serving those communities, and our forum as within those systems. So we've got ourselves a kind of nested structure of our clusters that we can head into now, unless anybody has anything burning they want to add to this discussion of kaitiakitanga and the Māori worldview for now.
Sorry, Julie, can I just share my screen with you guys? Just a concept that Shappy's passed on to me that I think is relevant for everybody going into this next discussion. That all good?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Share screen. So this comes out of Te Atiawa mahi, and it's just the concept of contemporary kaitiakitanga in rohi management, rohi being our area of, or our region. And it starts with Te Ao Māori worldview, then tikanga based on customary systems and values and practices that have developed over time and are deeply embedded in the social context. Then acknowledging, respecting the atua, acknowledging and respecting the deities of the natural world, ancestors. All whakaaro tested against mātauranga Māori, all ideas tested against Māori cultural knowledge. Being because Māori have been on this land for centuries and we have an understanding of what works and what doesn't to an extent. Implemented through kaitiakitanga, through responsible stewardship, or mahi to result in net enduring restorative outcomes, or work to result in, focused on Mauri, the life force, vital essence, Mauri being the life of everything, the life force, everything that has life, holds life. Mana before money, authority and status comes before money. Ecology before economy, the natural world takes precedence over the economy, acknowledging our global context, our place and impact on the world at large. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thanks, Wehi. So this conversation is going to be an ongoing one. We'll come back to it at our next meeting and beyond. Do feel free to email and put a message in the chat to Wehi with any other questions that you have. But for now, let's go into clusters. We've got 2 very large breakout rooms and 2 small ones. And I think I've probably only got about 2/3 of the room into those groups, but I'll open those rooms now, and then I'll allocate everyone who's remaining to the group that they would like. And I'd invite you to do a quick check-in with the people in the room first, before starting with the 4 questions that are in the agenda. So the 4 questions that you'll be asking yourselves as clusters. My screen is not helping me right now. Thinking about how your cluster is, the subgroups in your cluster are interconnected, how they can embody and respect the concept of kaitiakitanga, and there are a couple of others as well. I'm going to send through those as announcements to your group. So you'll see them come up on the screen, and you'll have 5 to 10 minutes to answer each one of those. Really, it's just the beginning of a discussion about this concept, and to get in your minds this idea of the subgroups coming together as clusters with a purpose that sits within kaitiakitanga. So I'm going to open those groups now. We'll see what happens. I would like to invite one person from each of those groups to make notes on what your group is saying, so that we can include them within the minutes. And we'll see what happens. We'll feed back into the group at the end. So if one person could also be a mental note taker and with a quick report back to the forum at the end, that would be great. Okay, let's go. So you should have a join rooms button that you can click, and lots of people haven't. So let's see, I can see some people that I probably know already. Wehi, where would you like to go? If you could all unmute yourselves in preparation for me asking you.
I missed what do you want us, what group would you like me to go to, Julie? Do you want me to go to the forum? I missed the title.
Whichever one you like. So the titles are Wellbeing of Our Natural World, Wellbeing of Our People, Resilience of Our Systems, and the Functioning of the Forum.
I'll be in Resilience of the Systems.
Yeah, sorry, Julie, I just assumed I was going to get put in the function of the forum since I'm a coordinator on that.
Yeah, you should have done all of those. Thank you.
I'll be functioning the forum too.
I can do function of the forum as well, Julie.
Yeah, same, Julie.
Yeah, I'll be resilience assistance. Thanks, Julie.
Leslie, was that you saying resilience of functioning of the forum?
That was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Yako, you'll be in there as well. Carolyn, you said?
Resilience of systems, please.
Thank you. Anna, where would you like to go?
Which has the smallest number of people?
Thank you. Carlo?
Probably resilience of systems as well.
Thank you. Jace, you'll be in well-being, won't you? Pop you in. Wehi, where would you like to go?
For well-being of people.
Thank you. Kerry?
Resilience, thank you.
Joan?
Not resilience.
Thank you. Claude? Tord, shall I put you in functioning of the forum with the research people? I don't see you there. Okay, you're not hearing me. Bill and Monique.
Resilience. Resilience.
You're not two people today. Okay, Alistair Monroe.
Oh, well, resilience, please.
Thank you. Other Alistair?
Okay, whichever's smaller of people or systems.
Thank you. Anna? No? Okay, so everybody else, I think you should already have a join button. Well-being of the people, yes. Okay, hi Kendra. Which group would you like to be part of? Oh, you've already told me. Anna, there you go. Tord, I'll pop you in functioning. Welcome back. Are we all back? Yes, I think we must be. All right. So, thank you for taking part in that, what was probably quite a crazy discussion. I wonder if I could ask the person from the Te Mano Te Taio subgroup, cluster, sorry, to give us a minute's worth of what happened in that discussion, and were there any conclusions you drew?
Hi, I suppose that's me again. Yeah, well, we only got through about 2 of the questions, I'm afraid. But we had sort of discussion around the kaitiakitanga, and there's been quite a bit of sort of process going on already. There's been some sharing of resources because we have the Te Ao Māori subgroup within our cluster. So we've been sharing resources around and using those sort of as a work in progress to contribute towards improving sort of the strategy planning documents that we've been preparing. James Moran was talking about the sort of activating the air sort of the elements subgroup and trying to get that moving, and what else about working collectively, talking around the sort of some mapping process that we've got going, and how to combine that or add value to other sort of biodiversity mapping exercises that are going on with the like the Waimea group, the Tasman Environment Trust, and so on, to make sure we're not duplicating anything there. So we're definitely trying to sort of add value and not duplicate what's going on, I think. And Peter was talking about the work of the Tasman biodiversity strategy development there, and how that will be sort of moving forward over the next month or so. And so we'll be looking to integrate a bit with that too, I think. That's probably it for the moment.
Good. I think your cluster probably has the easiest question when it comes to how do you fit with kaitiakitanga, because that's really your overarching purpose, isn't it, to preserve the well-being of the natural world. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing more how your cluster works together. The what's next? Well-being of the people cluster. Who'd like to speak to the forum you discussed?
Well, I suppose I took notes, and I think I can make a little synopsis of that. One of we had several comments around the absolute fundamental and bedrock changes that are going to be required in our society, and how the well-being of the people group is not as constrained by just sort of like a technological fix or an adaptation. That we are talking about very much fundamental changes in the way we think about things, and the way we interact with each other, and the way we engage as a business community and such as that. There we had some other very interesting conversation about that the work of our group might be also considered to like just transition, like to make this transition, but also do it in such a way that it increases social integrity and cohesiveness, and brings marginalized people along with us. We had interesting comment about how many even pre-industrial societies had actually failed in this process. That had the resources were being limited, they were being stressed by some sorts of factors, and they actually failed. And we have probably more examples of that than we have current cultures.
Good, Jace. Thank you.
We're ready for cluster meetings as well, ready to meet as a cluster.
I look forward to seeing how those go. That's brilliant. Lovely synopsis. The resilience of our systems, please.
Yes, I took some notes on this one, and it was the first time we'd really got together as a cluster, and it was a little bit difficult to think about all the various aspects and how they fit together, but we focused to start with on the kaitiakitanga aspect, acknowledging that we don't have any resilience of our system until we have ecological resilience, and understanding that you know, we're down in a bit of a hole at the moment, and so we don't really have any stability to be able to bounce forward to whatever the new normal might be. We talked a bit about things that we could start to discuss more as a cluster that go across our various subgroups. And so those were things like what is the macroeconomic or the economic systems within which our subgroups operate in, thinking about what are, how can we look at what the essential services are that we've all come to know about over the last few months, and how we can make sure that they are resilient and bolstered, and how do we work with people, and probably the well-being of the people cluster, to promote what this new world might look like post-COVID, to be able to have resilience of that system. So very much acknowledging that we aren't resilient at the moment, so everything we need to do needs to be changing the systems that are in our subgroups.
Thanks, Jess. That's great. And you've touched on something there we're going to start looking at next week, which is how do the clusters interconnect? And so we're going to have a big mishmash of people looking at that question next time. It'll be interesting. Finally, the functioning of our forum.
You want to do this, Jackal, or shall I do it?
Oh, if you've got a mind to, Michael, you're welcome. Might be good.
to unmute myself. We had quite a lot of discussion about the structure of our groups and the need to have actions or deliverables that we can demonstrate to funders that we're providing. So there was some discussion about how we might switch the focus at some stage to what those deliverables might be and making sure that we can do that. Also, that the complexity of our structure at the moment and the number of subgroups and the clusters is actually using up a lot of people's energy just making things happen, and how we actually change so that we can put more of the energy that we've got into the deliverables that we need to deliver was something that we still need to talk about a lot more. And yeah, coming up with actions rather than, deliverables and actions are important if we're going to generate the outcomes that our funders, in this case the City Council, are looking for.
I suspect a lot of people are ready for those actions. I know I certainly am. Okay, well, we're bang on time to finish this session today. Thank you all very, very much for being here. I have gotten a huge amount out of both the presentations we had today, and I hope you did as well. I'm going to hand over to Wehi to karakia us out, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Kia ora, Julie. Thank you everyone for being here today. It was another productive hui, so awesome. Yeah, I'll close off with a karakia. I'll give us the Māori version first, and then the Te Reo Pākehā version after, and then we can all go. Kua mutu o mātou mahi mō tēnei wā, manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, e o ki te aorangi. Our work is finished for the moment. Bless us all, our colleagues, our families, peace to the universe. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, te mihi.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Okay.